She loved Sheikh Hamdan first. But another woman got him. She loved him first. Before the fame got bigger, before the world started watching his every move, before millions of women across the globe began falling for his poetry and his face, and the quiet sadness in his eyes. She was there first. She loved him when loving him was simple. And in the end, she was not the one who got to keep him. Another woman did. This is the story of the woman who came first, and what it cost her to love a man who was never fully allowed to be hers. To understand this story, you have to understand who Sheikh Hamdan really is underneath the title. Yes, he is the Crown Prince of Dubai. Yes, he is a public figure with millions of followers and a life that looks like something out of a movie. But before any of that defined him, he was just a young man. A young man with feelings. A young man who fell in love the way ordinary people fall in love. Slowly, deeply, and without any thought of politics or power or what his family might say. She was the first one. The woman who held his heart before the world even knew his name the way they know it now. She was not chosen for him. She was not part of a plan or an alliance or a strategy for the future of the royal family. She was simply someone he met, someone he connected with, someone who made him feel like a normal person instead of a prince. And for a while, in the quiet privacy that royal life rarely allows, that connection felt like it could become everything. He wrote about her. Even now, when people read Hamdan's early poems, they are reading words written about a love that existed before all the noise, before the marriages, before the headlines, before any of the complications that would eventually define so much of his adult life. Those early poems carry a different kind of innocence, a hope that had not yet been tested by duty or family expectation. They are some of the most honest words he has ever written, because at the time he wrote them, he still believed love might be allowed to win. But Hamdan was never just a man in love. He was always also the Crown Prince of Dubai. And that title comes with a price that very few people outside the royal family will ever fully understand. His father, Sheikh Mohammed, had a vision for his son's future, a vision that involved stability, alliances, and a marriage that would strengthen the family's position rather than simply make Hamdan happy. And in that vision, the woman who loved him first did not have a place. The marriage that was arranged for Hamdan was with Sheikha bint Syed Al Thani, his first cousin from his mother's side. It happened in June 2019. It was strategic. It was expected. It was, in every official sense, the correct decision for a man in his position, but it was not built on the kind of love that the first woman had given him. It was built on duty, on family, on the kind of careful planning that royal families rely on to protect their future. And so the woman who loved him first had to step aside, quietly, without announcement, without the world ever knowing her name or her story. She watched from a distance as the man she loved married someone chosen for reasons that had nothing to do with feelings. She watched as headlines celebrated a royal wedding while her own heartbreak remained completely invisible to the public eye. That is one of the cruelest parts of loving someone in a position like Hamdan's. Your heartbreak does not make the news. It simply disappears into silence. But Hamdan never fully let go of what he felt. Even inside his arranged marriage, even while playing the role that was expected of him, the feelings he had for the woman who came first did not disappear. They lived in his poetry, in his silences, in the parts of him that Sheikha could feel but never fully reach. Some say it was the same woman who he eventually returned to after his marriage to Sheikha began to fall apart. Others say that by then, someone else had already stepped into the space the first woman had once occupied, a different woman entirely, who eventually became the one Hamdan married privately and who became the mother of his children. This is where the story becomes especially painful for the woman who loved him first. Because in the end, it was not her who got to walk through that open door when his first marriage ended. It was someone else. Another woman who, whether through timing or circumstance or simply being there at the right moment, became the person Hamdan chose to build his private life with. The first woman, the one whose love helped shape the poet Hamdan became, was left on the outside, watching someone else receive the ending she may have once hoped would be hers. There is something deeply human about this kind of heartbreak. Loving someone first does not guarantee you get to keep them. Sometimes you are the one who helps shape a person's heart, who teaches them what real love feels like, who gives them the courage to write poems and dream of a different kind of life, and then watch as circumstances, timing, or family decisions hand that life to someone else entirely. It is one of the quietest, most overlooked forms of loss. Nobody writes news articles about the woman who loved first and lost. But her story matters just as much as anyone else's in this royal saga. Hamdan's poetry, even now, carries traces of multiple loves layered on top of each other. Longing that does not have a single clear source. Sadness that could belong to more than one woman, more than one chapter, more than one version of the life he might have had. When you read his words carefully, you start to understand that his heart has never belonged entirely to one place. Part of it stayed with the woman who loved him first. Part of it moved toward the woman who eventually became his family. And part of it remains tied to duty, to the marriage his father arranged, to a life he never fully chose for himself. This is the quiet tragedy underneath the glamorous image of the Crown Prince of Dubai, a man surrounded by beauty, wealth, and admiration, but also surrounded by women whose love for him was shaped by timing and circumstance more than by fairness. The woman who loved him first gave him something real, something formative, something that helped create the poet the world fell in love with. But she was not the one standing beside him when the dust finally settled. Another woman was. And that is a kind of heartbreak that does not heal easily, even when nobody outside is watching. Somewhere out there, she is living her life, quietly, privately, carrying a chapter of Hamdan's story that the public will probably never fully know. And Hamdan continues writing poems that carry echoes of everyone who has ever touched his heart, including her, including the first one, the one who loved him before the world ever did. If you want to keep following the real story behind Sheikh Hamdan's life and love, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week we bring you closer to the truth behind the headlines.